Hi, welcome to Urban Insights. I'm Jayashree Kurup. I have with me Paras Tyagi. He's from a NGO working very closely with the Delhi's urban villages. And it's not only the villages, it's about mutation, it's about land rights. And Paras, thank you so much for joining us. In a nutshell, what are the issues that you are fighting for in Delhi's uh, land issue?
Jayashree, first of all, thanks for the invitation. And as you mentioned, the burning issue right now in the national capital is that people have raised voices about mutation, a process that they are not able to deal with the concerned development agency in the national capital. And now we have two, Delhi Development Authority and the Revenue Department of the Delhi government. And the way we understood the problem was when some farmers started talking about it in a manner that they went to the concerned revenue department to get their agricultural land mutated, and the revenue department said that we don't have the power anymore. Why? Because the DLR Act, which was governing their lands, whether it is agricultural land or other land they have in the village area, because it was a rural village, now it is declared urban. Now, the moment a village is declared urban in Delhi, this DLR Act ceases to exist, and the land which is notified as a development area. So now DD Act and the DMC Act are operational. But both these acts never had any provision that can provide the facility of mutation to the concerned person. That is the legal challenge where people are facing for some time now. And the way we have understood the roots of this problem, it goes back to the 1950s, because 1957 is the time when the DD Act and the DMC Act came into provision. So when 1957 onwards the village was declared urban, certainly these challenges were faced by the farmers at that point in time as well. And in many villages, we know for sure that certain land parcels remain unacquired. Somebody had a very small land parcel which was near the village. They needed some this land for some more residential area because their family size increased. So they kept it, and the government also had an empathetic view of the people. So they left it unacquired. Somewhere water was kind of stuck, like water used to come. It was a low lying area. Then also government didn't acquire. So these land parcels also exist all across the national capital, where village land was acquired. But still, these land parcels were never mutated, because I'm talking about the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and now we are sitting into 2024. We are talking about third generation which just exists right now. What about those lands? They're ignored. Right now, the only facility provided by the revenue department, after a discussion with the lieutenant governor of Delhi, is that under the provision of DMC Act Section 507, which doesn't talk about mutation, they are saying we are doing this mutation in these villages where land pooling is declared, but only in certain villages. There are villages like Kanjhavla, Singola, Poot, where land consolidation process is still continuing. So this is very contradictory, decision of the concerned administration. On one side, they say that DLR Act has ceased to exist, but on the other side, they are continuing with the land consolidation process that's going as per DLR Act. These are the two differences.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the land consolidation effort. We have been talking about land pooling since 2010. We are 14 years into the process, and even today, the land pooling is Delhi's land pooling is nowhere close to what it was expected to be. What are the reasons do you think for this? And is the are the owners, the farmers, ready at the ground level to participate in a land pooling exercise?
So, Jayashree, in 2019 is when I came into contact with many farmers and the land uh, where land pooling was declared urban. So I interacted with farmers and their children who were my age and who were really interested when government has announced a policy talking about development. So everybody has expectations. So I was also looking at it that it will help national capital, get decongested a bit. And because we live in the area which is already declared urban many decades ago, and we are in the middle of a city, or all across all four sides around the village where I live, it's a city. But these villages are where actual farming is happening, but they are not declared on paper. And in my initial discussions with the people, everybody was hopeful land pooling will come. But with time, when I started interacting with them, that let's assume land pooling is coming, it's announced now. What are your expectations? What would you do? how much land do you have? So many observations came that people hardly had 1, 2, or 3, 4 acres of land with them. Although the policy talks about land parcel of 50 acres size and 30, 25 acres. So we did a study. We looked at all the 95 villages which are declared urban under notified areas, development area for land pooling, and we came to know about the land ownership which I have shared with you. That majority of the people even don't even have 1 acre of land. I'm talking about 60% land holding is such that on paper it is under a name of one person. Then we still move ahead. Then we get to 10%, to 20%, and by the time we reach a level of 5 acres, I can even count the number of people on my fingertips. These are the people who have land parcel of this size. Now coming back to the ownership of 1 acre, which is 60%. Imagine the process of mutation. If that person had died, they have their children, and those children have grandchildren. So this three generations existing together in these declared urban villages, it doesn't really reflect the the opportunities which are provided by the land pooling, that you should come together and pool land so that a city can grow on your farmland. So majority of people need that land for their own sustenance. When I mean by sustenance is to accommodate their increased family size. They don't have land. And the second question you would ask, that what do they expect? So initially the young people were expecting that certain opportunities will come their way, but many people are still thinking of just not holding to their land, just getting it away at a price. But the price they are expecting for their land is what they want. People are getting in Noida and Gurgaon. So this is aspiration of those people in the national capital, which really are not, these opportunities are really not meeting each other, I would say.
Right. Paras, originally, when the land pooling was announced, it was supposed to be the government taking the land and pooling it and giving back developed land, 40% kept for common facilities, and the 60% being given to the owners, right? So that they could become participants of the process of development. Now, that has changed significantly, and it has become development entities which have to manage the consolidated land, which is where the entire process was derailed, right? A private entity may not give them the best land, or the best, the best developed land, and that is where everything started unraveling. Do you have been interacting with the DDA, with the ministry, with various stakeholders? Do you see light at the end of the tunnel? Do you see land pooling uh, unraveling the problem itself from the problems it has tied itself into?
Changes in the policy with what it was announced in the first stage, and then I'm talking about 2013, and then 2018 the policy was notified. So many things have changed. The kind of aspirations people had and the kind of expectations people were thinking that DDA will do this for them. Now, DDA, which was responsible for the planning and development of the whole national capital, where 50% of the villages have been declared urban by them, and they have taken care of the needs of the people and the city itself. And now for these remaining people, they have come up with a policy where they say, initially they said we will give it to you, and then they said no, developer entity will give. And we are talking about land. People have emotions connected with it. People have certain inhibitions in their mind that what will happen to the land. I need to know, and I have to know it immediately. DDA is not able to answer these questions because a simple provision in the land pooling policies, extra development charge. DDA is saying that developer entity, I would use the word developer entity because only developer entity can interact with DDA. A farmer cannot, because all of them together have to form a consortium and then go ahead. So if they are so sure about this policy with these provisions, they should have announced how much are they expecting this EDC to be per acre or whatever calculations they had in their mind. This is what is kind of demotivating the farmers who are actually the main stakeholder of this policy, and they will get a lot more. They will get benefits which they are always aspiring for. So just one simple logic of land and money, which it needs to be paid for, and then they're expecting a certain return. Very challenging for the farm. I'm talking about the farmers, the villagers. I know many people have purchased land in the land pooling areas. People have already formed certain private limited. People have formed certain cooperatives, societies. but they are part of the market where they can maybe they may negotiate with DDA and come into terms with DDA. But from the farmer side, I have hardly interacted with any farmer who is ready to go ahead with these changes. They're still talking about more changes for them, and I find a practical reason because as I've already shared the ownership. See, nobody is talking about the ownership of this land area in the land pooling unless that land ownership qualifies to be in certain manner that it can accommodate the needs of the landowners and provide certain surplus land for the national capital to extend its urban transformation. Then only it will be practical policy. I find it extremely difficult unless it is admitted that the landowners in these villages, I'm talking about the natives or the farmers, if their needs are not being satisfied by this policy, how do we expect this policy to go ahead?
Right. There is also a talk about compulsory pooling of the land. Do you think that will happen? And what are the legal norms for or against?
Well, this Land Acquisition Act, which came in 2013, although it talk about compulsory land acquisition in certain cases, but land pooling is very different from land acquisition. Government has announced a policy which was not mandatory first. Then government has brought a term that we will make it mandatory because certain people want it, and then certain people are not wanting this. So there is a kind of a friction. But the reality on ground, when I talk about land ownership, imagine a farmer who doesn't have 1 acre of land. He has three sons or three children, and then there are daughters and sons. Everybody's there. Can DDA convince the law ministry who's taking charge of this mandatory provision, which will come by the parliament? Will the parliament of our country say that this 1 acre farmer in Delhi has to mandatory pool their land because Delhi has to expand on the farmland of that 1 acre farmer? What about the residential needs of that family? Because that farmer has a family size of a number of children with him or her. I find I have no idea because somebody coming to me and saying that you have this asset, your land, and it is mandatory you have to give. I will certainly point out that this is my real condition. You come, you verified the ground realities. If you think it is possible, then go ahead. So my inhibitions are there. That legally it's extremely difficult to happen.
Okay, yeah. While we wait for the government to resolve its land pooling policy, what's happening on the ground?
Many things are happening on ground for sure, and the only word which comes to my mind is although government is saying that this area is a development area, we will do development area when all the formalities will be completed. On the contrary, unfortunately, as Delhi is infamously known for the unauthorized constructions, the unauthorized colonies, they are being carved out on these farmlands in different areas. Wherever land pooling sectors were announced, model sector was announced, like first model sector which was announced in national land pooling area. Just a purely a satellite imagery of these sectors can show what is happening on the ground, and this is not something which has happened just right now or 2 months back. 2018 the policy was announced. 2013 was the first edition, and we have a satellite imagery for the last 20 years. So I'm sure anybody can look at it and understand what's happening on the ground.
Okay. And how much land would be lost to illegal construction every year? Any estimates?
Uh, I see what I have read in the press statements of experts and people talking about it that 200 to 300 acres is lost every day. Sorry, every year. We are trying to use the satellite imagery and other tools available. What we can say is that when we know DDA has already announced sectoral development, so we have one sector of certain acres. So I am looking at it that I look at the one sector area and then look at per sector loss. So I'm still to come up with a number, but I will say that this 200, 300 is far less than what is actually happening at ground.
Um, the master plan 2041 was, it was planned to accommodate all these various problems and find solutions and all. What do you think is happening with the master plan currently, and does it actually address these on ground issues?
Well, I've been interacting with DDA and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and writing to the concerned decision makers that this plan itself has so many challenges because you have not cared for the villages. You are not looking at it from a perspective of what is already existing on ground and what is being illegally constructed on the area which you are announcing as development area. I'm talking about unauthorized constructions and the kind of, for example, the size of, commercial and industrial establishments they are providing in MPD. They doesn't, cater to the real needs of people. We're talking about, groceries and warehousing, logistics in the national capital. But if you don't provide any specific, legal provision that this is what we will allow, this is permissible, this is what we can, look at it from a right of way perspective. So I find it totally impractical. It doesn't really meet the needs of the national capital, Delhi. I belong to an urban village, and we know urban villages are known for their commercial use. But when we know that this commercial use is already, included in the master planning and right of way of the road which is existing outside the village or the nearby area, whether people have done some, uh, collaborations to, accommodate the right of way and fire, kind of safety provisions. Why don't you allow these things to go ahead with a approval? Because ultimately what will happen, you will not allow it and then you will say we will regularize it. So these things attract, frictions. I have, just one example I will point out in this master plan. When we look at the land use plan of MPD 2041, it has these unauthorized colonies being recognized in pinkish color in all these sectors, all across the national capital area. From the old urban area to this newly declared urban area, DDS has just drawn these pinkish lines saying this is unauthorized construction, which we have regularized because this 2019 parliamentary, approval for these regularization of these unauthorized colonies. But there are no boundaries which they have shown. What about the unauthorized construction which is happening adjacent to this? So what will you do now after 5 years of this announcement? Will you extend this pinkish line or you will do something in a more planned manner? And again, we are talking about a master plan which has certain zonal plans and local area plans. Yet again, DDA is not showing any, initiative to point out the accountability and transparency in the manner of local area plans. Ultimately, people who want to settle in Delhi, they will be concerned about the local area plan because master plan is just a one framework. If at the local level or the zone level, we don't have the hospitals, the colleges, the other basic facilities which the citizens need, you again will fail the national capital. What has happened in Mukherjee Nagar? Nobody is talking about the master plan. See, nobody is talking about whether that road, even if it is allowing mixed land use on ground floor, how come all the four floors of those buildings were commercially used, including the basement where the children die? That is the question which everybody is silent on.
Right. What do you think is a solution? Would you like some kind of announcement from the DDA clarifying the baselines? What is the solution going forward?
Right now, DD has announced land pooling, green development area policy also for the peripheral villages, and regeneration for the area which is already urban and it's an old urban areas where they say that you can redevelop or regenerate this area as per our norms. If DDA is so sure about these three policies to dictate the next 25 or 20 or whatever is remaining from 2041 now in 2024, next 15 16 years, then why are they not bringing the white paper that can point out what are actually the work they have done in these policies and the solution they expect will take care of these policies to be implemented on ground? That is the one solution I expect. In a public policy space, DDA yet again the authority for planning and development of the national capital. If they are so sure about their policies, why are they not coming with a white paper that can also inform the decision making which will happen in the winter parliament session, as it has been announced recently that this policy, this amendments in DD Act will happen at the parliament level. I am asking for a white paper. Won't the decision makers in our elected representative in the parliament ask the same thing? That if DDA wants our approval for bringing in the mandatory provision in the DDA Act, show us a white paper. Then we will consider it, and then we will go ahead with our approval or disapproval. And second thing, which I feel as a solution, Jayashree, coming from a urban village which has lost all the opportunities which could have come our way. I'm talking about expectations of participating in such development policies like land pooling is offering to the farmers, that they can utilize their land for planned and legally approved constructions, whether it is industrial, commercial, or residential. I feel something which is missing in these policies is the cooperative spirit. If the cooperative spirit comes to this real estate in national capital, we are talking about more than 50,000 acre. I'm not using the word 90,000 acre or 80,000 because I know what is happening on ground. So I'm expecting certain limit of at least 50,000 acres, which is available for a new urban development in the national capital, which will offer lots of opportunities for everybody. I respect that aspiration of people, and my expectation is that if you leave someone behind at right now in a manner that mistakes of what has happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s are repeated now, then who is accountable for these mistakes? Why are the farmers not provided the opportunity to form cooperatives? And some awareness among them can be built by those civil society organizations that usually help in these initiatives, because consortium developer entity, this is okay for the market players. How can they expect the farmers who are doing farming to become a consortium and a developer entity and participate this in policy? So then alternative for whether it's a land pooling or green development, or even for regeneration, because regeneration will happen in the heart of the city or nearby areas where certain percentage of land area will be utilized for few acres land parcels, or certain size which will be uh, provided guidelines of DDA, that land can be used for commercial industrial purpose or even residential purpose with a higher FAR. So even those people will be first generation learners. So if cooperative sector shows certain push, I feel then these policies and the whole real estate development in the national capital can really find meaningful engagements and really a push for the sector, which is much needed.
Right. Let's hope that happens soon, Paras. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will definitely continue this conversation. Thank you so much. Found this video useful? Please subscribe to this channel for more such videos. Do like and share with as many people as you can.